Good morning, everyone. I'll say all protocol observed because I am not well versed in that arena, but I'm very happy to be here. But more importantly, a lot of people would say, how do you feel living with diabetes? And for me, I first said to God, why me? Why would you punish me? What did I do that's so bad? I mean, out of all the diseases, you chose diabetes, And I think people don't understand what it is like to live with diabetes. I think even doctors themselves understand the disease, but they don't understand what it is like to feel it, to live it. And for me, I feel it, I live it. I feel it, I live it from the day I was diagnosed. How did I know? I know because both my parents were diabetic type. One was type 1, one was type 2. So I was a nurse, meaning I nursed them until they both passed on at different stages. My dad got renal failure, so I had to understand what is dialysis. I had to understand what caused that. And then he had total renal failure eventually. My mother, same thing. But they both went into comas before they left. So for me, nursing them from home, talking to the physicians and understanding what is this disease, I learned it whether I wanted to learn it or not. And that is why the day that I knew, I didn't think, I knew I was diabetic because I was walking in a mall, suddenly couldn't read signs, suddenly dizzy, suddenly my mouth was dry. A lot of those signs that come with a person who becomes diabetic or who is diabetic. And I went into a pharmacy, this came, and I didn't go and ask the pharmacist, oh, is there a nurse? No, I became my own nurse. I bought myself a tester, sat in a little corner in the pharmacy, tested myself. It said 19. And I thought to myself, why am I still standing if I'm at 19 for a first timer? I suppose people who've lived with it, once it gets to 20, 21, you get dizzy, but you kind of now know how to deal with it quickly, drink lots of water, walk, etc., etc. So that is how I found out. And I checked myself into hospital. They said, oh, you look very normal. What are you here for? And I said, I probably am about to collapse, but I'd like you to test me. And they couldn't understand because there I was glamorously dressed in my heels, talking to them like nothing's happening, So it turns into a little joke, but it was so real. And as I was admitted, I began to understand, and it was like a whole new world for me because here I wasn't sitting in this hospital room, and dietitians were brought in, and my doctor said, you African girls, you like bread and pap and all these things. You need to stop it forever. Why? There's alternatives. He says, how do you know? I say, I read. There's alternatives. I can do low GI bread. But it's about education. So I realized there and there that I needed to read more and understand more in order to survive, in order to beat this, in order to educate others. So as a Christian girl, to me, I see it as a purpose. As a regular person, it's like, oh, you have it, you're famous, tell us all about it. For me, I take it further. I take it that it's my sense of purpose. Everybody finds a sense of purpose. So for me, I believe that because people know me so much, I'm going to be able to speak on this deadly disease, and people are going to listen. A lot of people talk about fashion. They talk about hair. They talk about this. They talk about that, and people listen because they're well known. So for me, my target is to educate people about their health, general health. Then we talk about what? Your eating habits. Because my eating habits got me to where I was. Why? Besides being an actress, I run a business. We do events. So when you do events, you're always on the go. You're eating takeaways, you're eating drive-thrus, you're doing this, you're doing that. You never have a proper packed lunch. You're just doing. And because it's a lifestyle. You're doing bubbly, you're doing wine, you're doing the sweetest juice ever in town because you want the energy, you drink Coke. So I knew there and then that everything had to change. And in order for those who you spoke about, doctor, about people who are pre, we need to protect them. I wish somebody protected me. I wish somebody came to me and made me aware that there's a pre. The fact that my parents were all diabetic didn't mean anything. My brain was still not in the correct mode. The correct mode that speaks to what is it that, how do you define pre? What is pre-diabetic? What are the signs that say you're pre-diabetic? Is it because you're overweight? I was overweight, yeah. Many people are overweight, but they're not necessarily pre-diabetic. You know, they live interesting lives, and you think you don't even have cholesterol, or how are you surviving? Because we are all built differently. So for me, I knew that this is a disease that has been given to me to help others. So the first thing I needed to do was to fight it for myself. And it's been an interesting journey the past 2-3 years, just understanding the medication is the most horrible thing ever. After drinking it, you don't want to talk to people because it makes you so sick, mentally, emotionally, in any other way. That's why I say even doctors themselves don't understand. You can understand that it's the best medication for me, but you don't understand how I feel after I drink it. And this is the reason a lot of people skip it. But the interesting thing about it is that it's momentary. It's not the whole day that you'll feel like that, but just you dread that feeling. And that's what makes people skip it. And I think if we can make people understand that it's not for the entire day, it's for that moment, that hour, take time to be alone, whether you're meditating, whether you're singing, whether you're watching a movie. Let's make it interesting enough for people to stick to their medication. And I've taken it upon myself to say, I want to do a blog. I'm on social media. They talked about me on social media. I was trending for 3 weeks nonstop. I was so surprised. I was like, wow, I'm famous again. Interesting. You know, and here they were talking, they were saying, ooh, Sophie, please tell us if you're HIV positive. Don't be afraid. How? Are people who are HIV positive the only people who lose weight? People suffer from cancer. People suffer from so many chronic illnesses. TB, having TB doesn't necessarily mean you have HIV either. But the stigma that people put on us, people who live with chronic disease, is the most horrible. I had people speaking to me on Instagram and Facebook and saying, you know, I had cancer of the breast, I had cancer of this, and I ended up losing so much weight. I was criticized by my own neighbors, I was criticized by my own colleagues at work saying, why don't just talk, we'll support you. I'm busy telling them I've got cancer. They say, no, don't tell us about cancer. Tell us about this deadly disease that you have, AIDS. You are now borderline AIDS. So with me, I used to be a full-figured woman, and I considered myself extremely sexy full-figured. I was wearing size 42 to go into a size 28. Was shocking to the country. The minute they found out what I really looked like, it trended for weeks and weeks because they were in shock themselves, and they didn't know how to react to this shock. And instead of them understanding that I would never swap being a fuller-figured woman for how I look right now. I might be too skinny, I might be too small, but at least I can fight to bring back my weight through a good protein diet. But to say to myself, I want to, you know, I'm not lucky like other people. I'm prone to any illness if I have to gain weight. Other people can live with weight, size 42, and nothing happens to them. We're just built differently. So I can't take that chance. And I need to create awareness to the people out there to say to them, you're living with it. Let's celebrate it. You've lost weight. Let's talk about how you now look and the fashion you're wearing. And I'm wearing things I couldn't wear before, so I laugh about it. I'm like, I'm wearing better outfits. I don't know about you. Because we need to stop being serious about these things all the time. Because the more we make it too serious, the more people run from it. And they don't want to talk about it because we make it so serious. That's why I think earlier on you said, someone said, I'd rather live with HIV than live with diabetes. Let me tell you, if you live with diabetes, you understand. I haven't lived with HIV, so I wouldn't know and I wouldn't speak on it. But from experience of living with family members that have lived with HIV for many years and have lived a normal life, to me, I could die in a coma tonight just because I drank too much sugar. But a person with HIV, that's not going to happen to them. Unless they stop their medication and they start deteriorating and they go into full-blown AIDS, it's stages after stages, or they get an infection. And that's very clear. When you have an infection, it's clear. But with us, you don't have to have an infection. My cousin died in her sleep. Today we're talking, she's in her 30s. Tomorrow morning she was dead. Why? She forgot to test before she slept. She had too much sugar. She had tea with her grandmother and cakes because they were celebrating something. And she slept, she died in her sleep. So that is why I say it's a scary disease. For me, it's so scary that if you don't know how to manage it, it becomes problematic. But once you know how to manage it, it doesn't become problematic. It's manageable, you live a full life that's normal, And I think also the family part that you've put in, Doctor, in your foundation, speaking about involving your family, it's a family thing. Your family needs to support you. How do they support you? Let me speak for myself. They support me by us going into our pantry and saying what's in there that shouldn't be there. If you as my family, you're supporting me, let's join me in my journey of healthy eating. Yes, 30% of the stuff can be yours, but let's 70% speak to good health. So that on this journey, I also prevent you, because it's hereditary as well. My children won't get it if they start eating healthy from a very young age. So what am I doing? I'm avoiding the pre that we talk about. The pre that you identify maybe when you start being overweight, or you start, I don't know, what the pre, how you define the pre properly and 100% to say, if you continue to do this and that and that and that, you will be pre. I'm still researching, I'm still understanding. So the key focus was to make sure I don't default on my medication. I defaulted for many months. Why? I was going through my own personal stress. So I defaulted on my medication. And what did that do? It made me lose a lot of weight. And I wasn't aware. So I was on a diet vision to say, I'm diabetic, I need to lose weight. Oh my gosh, I can't be overweight. So that was going on perfectly. But because I was defaulting on taking my medication properly, something you spoke about, I was defaulting on that, it then shredded me without even noticing. Somebody said to me, Mama, do you see how much weight you're losing? And I said, no, darling, I'm looking fabulous. You don't even see it until somebody makes you aware. Why? Because it sometimes just grabs you and takes a lot of weight away all at once. And it's almost like an overnight thing. And yet it was gradually happening. You were just not seeing it. And the people around you were so ignorant that they were not also seeing it. And yet while we talk about family, family has to be there to support, to see the things you don't see. When you start defaulting, they should be the ones who encourage you and say, you know what's going to happen if you default. Don't do that. You know, you can even play a game with your family and say, every time I default, I owe you this. I owe you money. I owe you to buy you this. I owe you. It becomes a fun family game. Why? Because you know that if you default, your kids are going to come after you. And you don't want to part with whatever it is that they want. So you make sure that when they monitor you, you're also doing that. And what happens to then people who don't have families? Who live alone, who live a life where it's a professional or an old woman who lives alone. What do we do as society? What is government's plan? I think for me, I just want to know what is government's plan, Department of Health. You know, when I worked with the minister, I was an ambassador for health for quite some time, a few years ago, and our focus was HIV then. We're talking about how KZN has the highest HIV rate, the youngest people, married men because they go with young single girls from college, and that was interesting. We're sitting there workshopping and understanding, and somebody presented all these things. Who is speaking on diabetes? People are living with HIV for many, many, many years. I've got a cousin with full-blown AIDS. I taught her, I said, you are going to fight this today. She's an advocate herself. She lives a full life. She has a child. She has a husband living with HIV. And the man is not HIV positive. So that thing shows you that we can fight anything that we want. But we need government support in order. Because you see, government is like the law that nobody can really deny even if they want to. So now when we have your support as government, we know that we can do much more. When we have your signature that says we are behind you, we ourselves are going to start a new campaign come 2019. Our vision, our mindset, our planning is going to change. You know, to speak to exactly what you're saying. Kids in schools. I've got a neighbor where I grew up in Soweto. The daughter was diagnosed at age 7 because the mother didn't even know. Because what? When she goes to clinic, it's just polio, it's this, it's that, it's the end of it. Oh no, she's done her immunization. Oh, I'm throwing away the card. She never needs to go to clinic again unless she's got flu. So that child, they found out that she was type 1 diabetic, and it had already eaten up so many things in her body. And she was type 1, and she passed on. Why? No knowledge. The mother knew nothing. The clinic didn't assist. So what is government doing to assist in letting the schools, especially government schools, you know, private schools, they've got a mind of their own. They do their own tests. The best tests they do, my son and daughter went to private schools, and the best they could do was say, let's check your children if they're mentally stable, if they need medication, because your child is very hyper, or Yeah, that's the most popular one in schools. Then they bring some fancy lady who's going to charge you for medication because your child is not normal. And the next test is drugs. That's the end of it. They'll never test kids for TB. They'll never test kids for diabetes. They'll never do any of that. And I think as parents, we need to give consent that when schools have a health week, we need to create a health week. And schools have a health week, that's when kids are tested for all these things that don't need a parent to be next to you. As long as there's a guardian who's the teacher and is standing for the parent, it can be done. So this thing is big. This diabetes, I call it a diabetes thing. This diabetes thing is big. And whether it's type 1 or type 2, it's big. It stands out. And it's something that we need to address so urgently because more and more people are dying. You know, in the Bible it says, without knowledge the people will perish. And I believe right now, our people are perishing and we're just sitting by. And some of us, some people are health practitioners and it's like, I'm gonna wait for the patient to come to me. There's nothing that you can really do. But there are people who have the capacity. You know, the foundations that you talk about, the companies that we go to, those companies that let me buy a tester. Do you know how expensive that tester is? Just to buy a pricking machine and a tester, and if I have to test myself twice or thrice a day, how much of those testers am I using, and what are those companies that we're spending so much money on doing to help prevent? They're not going to help you prevent. Why? They want to sell more. So government has to intervene and force them to intervene. Force them to have a CSI program that speaks to all the medication that they provide. If you're dealing with HIV medication, sponsor that. If under your CSI program, it has to be there compulsory. You know how they talked about BE and they said if you've got a company, BE, you must see a black person. Same system. They must turn it around and say, if you are a company that's making money from medication, chronic medication, you need to have chronic programs. Programs that support and help those who are living with chronic disease. Not all of us, even working class, not all of us can afford this medication. If you understand the pills that I take and how expensive they are, if you understand the testers that I use and how expensive they are, if you understand the food I need to eat and how expensive it is. You know, if I'm thinking bread, I can't just walk into a mall. I must think, oh gosh, sponge, it must be low GI. I must now, it's a project. I must now inform the person who's going to buy bread in the house, even if it's Ugogo or auntie or whomever, please buy low GI. I cannot eat. If I really want bread, I can't eat any other bread. If I really want rice, I can't eat any other rice except brown rice. And I don't even have guarantee that brown rice is healthy. So I have to limit my intake. So fruits, I have to now learn which fruits are healthier. Oh no, blackberries are healthier. You know, what else? Kiwi is healthier. Banana that's not too raw is healthier. But when you go to the street, how often do you find a medium kind of greenish looking banana? Very rare. The rest are extra sweet, but because they said, no, if you're diabetic, you can have a banana. Because you don't know, it's too sweet. Because it's overripe, and you don't even know it. And then it puts the sugar right up. So, me then, going to buy berries, what happens when somebody who lives in Soweto, or Tembisa, or Alexander? They can't afford blackberries and kiwi. They don't even know what is kiwi, some of them. Kiwi, lente green, yo, no. You know, banana, I mean, but I banana clinic. But it's like banana sharp. But it's because brown sharp. You know, how do you say to somebody, Kasi, this is low GI, but it's also brown? How do you say to somebody, this is the reason why you can't drink fruit creamy? But in anyway, they don't understand that the fat that you put into your body, you rather do protein than try to put too much milk that's got fat. They don't know avocado, that it's good fat, but how much of it can you take? You don't know. So workshops are important to me. You know, we need to start doing our awareness campaigns every month, not on diabetes months. I think we need to dedicate 1 week, 1 day even, to just speak on this social media, make sure, you know, this media that likes to write about me, I say to them, it's very nice that you're writing about me every week. But when we're doing things like this, you're nowhere to be seen. I don't see them. So there's one I was chatting to on WhatsApp now. She says, oh, Sophie, where are you? And I sent her a picture. Oh, I'm coming back. You better write about this. because I'm not doing your interviews again if you're not writing about this. And it's not about me. It's about, let South Africa begin to understand that together we must partner to create awareness. And you, as the media, you've got a responsibility to support our vision. I don't want you recording that I'm giving away 10 pairs of shoes. It's done. It's overdone. I want to talk about saving a life. I want to talk about the how to save a life. Not, hey, there's Sophie, she's trying to save a life, full stop. No. What are we doing? What is the action plan? What is your support as media? Are you going to give us a page as the editor of Sunday Times, where once a month we talk diabetes? Are you? Are you going to give us a page in Sunday Sun, the one that sells the most when I'm on the cover, to give us a page to speak on this once a month? I'm challenging all of them. They were never ready for my attack, because I'm saying to them, you sell the most when I'm on your cover. When you talk diabetes, I don't have to be on your cover. Whether you like it or you don't, I don't care. I just want a page that you as a newspaper commit to CSI and say, as a newspaper, as a media house, I'm going to dedicate this page to educate people on that. Whether we're talking recipes that week, whether we're talking testing, whether we're talking how can you freely get testers available for free from clinics, which clinics in your area can you access all of this from? That's also very key, because people think you have to go to hospital to get these things. So we need to create awareness. So I'm really, really hoping that government is going to partner with us on this drive of saying, let's create awareness a month by month by month. And yes, when November comes, we are now giving our report that says, instead of saving one life, we saved thousands, because we just became more active once a month. Even if we don't meet as a team, but on our individual platforms, newspapers partnering with us partnering with ourselves and our fans, getting more ambassadors. You've got Hauser, who lives with diabetes. He's a musician. So we start identifying the celebrities, soccer players. You know, for a man to say I'm diabetic, there's that stigma that says, oh no, he's not going to be able to be a man in his marriage. Why? Because of the things that are said about diabetes. So it's going to be very difficult for male celebrities to come forward. But once we create awareness, people will begin to learn. Even those who are not celebrities are not afraid to tell their friends, with diabetes. Because now when men are at a car wash and they're blooming there, good to, hey, last week, hey, I was tired for it. He's not even saying, hey, I was diagnosed, I'm diabetic. He's too scared. But that, hey, learn that the marriage is about to end. Diabetic. I knew about diabetes. What I knew is that women with diabetes live fabulous lives. Men who have diabetes live the worst lives. That's all I knew for many, many years. I didn't even know that you can live healthily as a man, a healthy married life. I didn't know all that. I didn't bother to research. I was one of them who was saying, hey, shame this guy, yo, good to know diagnose you, yo. You know? So I think even in our campaigns, let's make it fun. When we did the AIDS campaign, HIV campaign, we had, for our young people, we had Minister of Finance, Minister of Hairstyle, Minister of Rent. We called them ministers because we're better, before even the blessers came into play. So when a guy was used by a little girl and he thought he was a hit, we said, he's so blonde, he doesn't know he's a Minister of Finance, he's paying her rent. So we had many names for them, and we were ambassadors of that program. And it was cartoons on TV ads doing that. So I believe that Department of Health, if you're listening, if you're here, if you've got a budget, give us money. Let's create an exciting campaign that's going to make South Africa not bored to listen to the diabetes vision, but to actually laugh about it at times and say, hey, Mfowethu, but diabetes, so what's happening? I'm an actress, so we turned that into a TV show. We turned it into a little clips of 30 seconds that go on Instagram, on Facebook, and we can use cartoons, we can use anything that will now start educating people that it's okay as a guy to be diabetic. And in fact, you can live a long, healthy life. And in fact, you can prevent your son from getting the disease. So I'm pleading with you. Mama, you've got more access than me. I'm pleading with you too. I am giving myself to you and saying, I am there with you. And I am there with South Africa. And I am there with the medical practitioners who struggle to educate people on this deadly disease. And I'm saying, let's rock them. Next year when we come here, I'm not interested in coming to be here if we've not started our month-to-month program. So I say we started from the beginning of the year. It's never too late. I know now people are rounding up their things, but honestly, from beginning of the year next year, let's start it. Support us from wherever you are, and let's fight. And let's win. And we are going to win. Thank you.